it's one of those things where, Rob, I was out by the pool today just to clean up, you know how I do, and I saw another plaque that was left for me on there from a very. At this point, I think he's just stalking me, but the note said on this plaque, really written, really nice calligraphy. I was lying on the grass on Sunday morning of last week, indulging in my self defeat. My mind was bugged, all laced and bugged, all twisted wrong beat, a comfort in 3 feet deep. And I'm just trying to figure out what do you think that means, Rob? As a psychoanalyst, someone who's
Yeah.
been looking at someone who clearly deserves to be in Arkham Asylum, what do you think that means? From I assume on the bottom it said Big V. What does that mean?
I actually feel that this is likely derived from the pleasure one gets for urinating in snow.
Okay. Understood. Well,
is that the meaning of the song?
Sorry?
It's not, right?
I don't know. We'll have to ask Vanis one day whenever he decides to reveal his secret identity. I don't know who this Vanis is. But,
I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you and that damn dog.
Yeah, I will leave it. You know, we
I think he's lousy kids or something. Does he say lousy kids? No.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it's kind of like those early morning cartoons where you think it's the character, and then someone else dresses up in a costume and then walks by and like it can't be this person. Look, there's another person wearing the Vanis costume. So we're gonna deal with that on another time and basis. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on the Heroes World Quarantine podcast and the shenanigans that ensue. I'm your host, Stupe. With me is one of the owners and proprietors of Heroes World, based in Markham / Unionville, Ontario. That'd be Mr. John Hose. Please say hello.
Howdy, folks.
And the very subtle V's. Is there something going on? And our resident prince of mischief, Mr. Rob Cadet. Please say hello.
Hey, everybody. Stu, just before we get into it, I just want to say if you haven't had the opportunity to check out this week's Heroes World Sidekick show, do us a favor, hit the YouTube link and check it out. But if you really just don't want to get into the bulk of what we were talking about, which was Tenet, and you want to see an epic moment in YouTube history, scroll right to the very end of the video, and you're going to see my friend John here pretend to take a fall.
Did he sing the theme song to Tenet?
No, he
Is there a theme song to Tenet?
Yeah, I thought, John, you made it up.
What did I miss?
No, we were doing.
Robin, the fun chat that the three of us now do Hurdle. And, John will also go in and be like, guys, I just came up. Did you not hear that song? I swore it was the theme song to Tenet. And Robin and I are like, wait a second, what's the theme song to Tenet? Yeah, so that's what it is. I think that's what it is, a hurdle.
Yeah, well, we were actually trying to do a bit where I was going to reach over and punch John virtually, like this, and he was supposed to fall back. But he actually, for real, fell down. And if you continue to listen for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes of that, it's his wife going, "What happened?" And he's like, "I fell." I'm like, why would you do? I don't know.
If you want to see a grown man fall out of his chair, you can tune into that. I'm gonna clip it out later. But I think I broke one of the wheels on this chair. I think it got crushified. That's what was the issue. So
now
don't
we're making up words.
Yeah, that's a word. It's a word. It'll be on Wordle in a couple weeks from now.
It won't. Wordle's a
I don't know how Wordle works.
Apparently,
I don't know how Wordle works, but I see a bunch of.
You don't know how Wordle works. Hurdle works. Bits. Falling wheelchairs.
Hey, I'm happy that John is even understands how to do hurdle. So we're on that one. John, like anything in life, doesn't like to show his work. He'll just all of a sudden, Rob and me will be like, look, we're showing you what we did, and then John's like, oh, this is the song. And we're like, we didn't know how many guesses you had, but we'll take your word for it. So
it's an app. It's an app you have to install, right? You have to install.
No, it's web-based, man.
It's a website. It's a website.
You don't have to install an app. Okay, sure.
What's happening?
I don't know.
Anyways, well, we're here to talk about the Adam Project, the Ryan Reynolds movie that dropped on March the 11th. It was a movie that initially was called, which was such an interesting movie, Our Name is Adam, back in the year of our Lord, October 2012, by Paramount Pictures. It originally was going to star a small actor. I don't know if you heard of him, John. Thomas Cruise. He was supposed to be.
Where's that movie then?
It's called Edge of Tomorrow.
This low key actor Thomas Cruise was attached to be in this movie, and it didn't really work out well. So the spec script kind of fell around a bit until 2020, when another gentleman called Ryan Reynolds and a director, Sean Levy, picked up the script and kind of moved along and decided we're going to do this movie ourselves. So they took it to Netflix, got it did, bada bing, bada boom, done. So here we go, The Adam Project, starring Ryan Reynolds. He has talked a lot about how he's wanted to do brand new properties. He didn't want to do, that's what Free Guy is, that's what Adam Project is. He's trying to do as many non-franchise things. I don't know whether to create his own franchises or just do something very different, but there are a lot of odes in this movie. So now that I've lined things up for you, John, tell us your thoughts on this movie before you give a rating out of 10.
Yeah, so in general, was it always slated as a Netflix movie as well? I don't know if you mentioned that or not. Yeah. It was always. They were going to get Tom Cruise for Netflix in 2012?
No. The Ryan Reynolds was going to be Netflix. Tom Cruise probably would have been a movie theater, yeah.
So as soon as he was attached, it went to, I guess he knew there was a Netflix project or whatever, something like that. But I think as far as Netflix movies go, this is pretty damn good, I think. We talked about, I think Tomorrow War was the last one we kind of thought was like a big deal. And maybe Army of the Dead. Maybe I don't know what else we were talking about originally.
Tomorrow was on Amazon. Are we talking about?
Well, direct to streaming, I guess. Direct to streaming.
I think the last one was
in Red Netflix.
Notice. It was Red Notice.
Yeah, Red Notice. Yeah, and I guess we'll keep it to Netflix then. Red Notice.
And then the Charlize Theron movie.
Yeah, Old Guard.
And the Old Guard.
There was something else that we thought was going to be really good. I forgot what it was.
The other Ryan
Underground 6. Yeah.
Yes.
Gunpowder Milkshake.
Gunpowder Milkshake.
Yeah. So as far as just those, like a direct to streaming movie, which we almost consider B movies now or whatever, I thought this was pretty good. I was pretty excited throughout. Like it kept my interest very easily, and I do like the fact that it is an original property. I didn't have to do any homework before this movie. I didn't have to look for any Easter eggs and things like that. But I was pretty happy with it. I don't think I can kind of fault this project at all.
Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and I think we have to. It's a whole other podcast or a whole other discussion about how we view Netflix only movies or streaming only movies. I don't necessarily think that they're always going to be B movies. I think that this movie could have easily been in the theater, much like Free Guy did in August of 2021. It's an enjoyable movie. I think that this is probably, a movie that you could sit with your family if you have younger kids and sit and watch. I think that it's hard when the three of us are in our 40s are reviewing movies that you could tell are somewhat geared towards the 10 to 15 age range. We would have loved this if we were that age. I think there's a lot for us still to like. I quite enjoyed it, but I definitely think you could tell this movie is geared, and it takes a lot of that nostalgia that we felt in the 80s in a lot of these movies that we've discussed in the past, like Goonies and the Spielberg movies and whatnot. So overall, I enjoyed the movie. I think it was great, but I do have some concerns about whether this has longevity, and we'll get into that later.
John, speaking of this film in terms of a rating out of 10, what are you giving this film?
Okay, before we get Stu's thoughts, because I'm sure he's going to unleash when he does his rating. But for Stu often says this level of execution, what it was trying to accomplish, I'm going to give this a solid 10 out of 10. If you're looking for a good, fun, I am. I'm changing what I'm doing on these ratings, and I think
every day.
Every day. Next week I'll come up with a new gimmick. But for what this was selling itself to be,
right.
I think it nailed it. I think it like the thing that was trying to accomplish.
Yep.
It nailed it. I think it's got a little bit of everything in there. I think Ryan Reynolds actually kind of like shows a little range here, which is kind of rare. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10, and we'll get into it later.
Rob?
I will agree with John in that what it sets out to do, it does very well. But there are some issues, as you know, fine, it's fine. But I wouldn't give it a 10, respectfully, John. I think this is a solid 8 movie. You know, and I think that it gets a bit of a bump up, I'll be very honest with you, by its co-lead star, is it Walter or William Scobell, the kid? This is his first role, and he holds his own up against Ryan Reynolds, and for that, it gets a, maybe it could be a 7.5 if it wasn't for him. He's a solid. So it's an 8 for me.
It's Walker, Rob, like Walker.
Walker.
So
yeah, Walker Scobell.
Right, chop us later in the face.
I will take it.
You know, as we've learned from previous history, that Walker Texas Ranger cannot be messed with. It's interesting we talk about this film. I think this film does a lot of homages to a lot of previous films from the early 80s and 90s, as John continues to flip things around.
That's not me. I don't know what this child is doing over here.
It's fine. I think you're both very generous to this film.
Are you going to tank it?
No, I don't think I'm going to tank it. I think you're very generous. I think this is a good 7 out of 10. I think that, you know,
I think that's pretty high for you, Stu.
I think that's.
I'm about. Yeah, I hear it. I can see that.
Like, I think this film definitely hurts from being a pandemic film. Still, I could feel it. That this film was shot in Vancouver. I'm like, you could say, oh, minimum people. I'm like, it just felt like, oh, they're in COVID protocols, and that's why it didn't feel like there were many people in this movie. Like, there was.
But they put their house like in the woods.
Yeah, the house was in the middle of nowhere.
So they were smart about it. They were smart about
nowhere. Like everything, like the giant office building is empty of people. I'm like, where is everyone on a giant multinational building? I'm like, a campus is big.
They address it though. They address it in the movie. They're like, where's everybody?
Yeah, like where is there? And like no answer was given. I was like, there's a lot of things going on. And yeah, I think everyone cast in this film does their job, yeoman level of work very well. I think, again, if I have to I was gonna say I bump it even to like a 7.5, but I think I'm pretty.
You can't really knock it. I think, Stu.
I can't.
No, there is.
Okay. But we're gonna go into spoilers because and go into details. I think will I watch this movie again? No.
Okay.
Like if it's being played in the background, cool. But I don't foresee this as a movie where I'm like, man, I got to go back and watch the Adam Project again. It's not like, I have to. It's not like Dune where I watch it 3 times to get a new nuance to the film. I think this film is very fun, and the nuance is basically it's what you see is what you get. This is not like a Tenet revealing an onion, and if you watch it, you can see different things around you. It's like you watch it once, that's all you need. The plot is bare minimum. Storyline for time travel, I'm like, okay. And that's all she wrote. So, John, as we move into spoiler bits and go into this film, you love this film, clearly, because giving it a 10 out of 10 means you love it. So tell me why you love this film.
It hits. So I guess we'll discuss the whole Netflix thing or whatever later on. But it hits exactly the sweet spot for Netflix. Like I'm sure everyone like me will fire up their Netflix, and you'll probably spend 15, maybe 20 minutes scrolling through looking for that thing you want to watch, and you start something up and you're like, nah, not this. But this is you can easily turn this on. It opens up with a nice action scene. So you're kind of like hooked right away. And then you can watch this. You can sit and watch this like with your popcorn in the dark with family or whatever. or you can leave this on in the background as you're doing other things, and you'll still you won't really lose anything. You'll be there for the actiony bits and catch all the funny bits, and you won't have to worry about all kind of things in between. So it just kind of like you've illustrated before, Stu, it nails exactly what it was going for. So if Netflix is going to continue to buy movies like this,
giving this movie the extra bump because of the T-shirt the kid was wearing in the scene with Mark Ruffalo. Did you see that T-shirt? The joke?
Oh, I didn't notice it. No.
So Mark Ruffalo points to this kid, and this kid's wearing a Nicolas Cage T-shirt with Nicolas Cage's face on it. On the bottom it says John Travolta, and he's like, "Oh, I get that joke."
Yeah,
it's a face-off joke.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I thought you were
I didn't pick that up, so I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go back. I'll throw a couple things just to remind you of why this movie just kind of fires on so many things. So it hits both sides. It hits comedy. It hits all three fronts. I think comedy, action, and it throws in a little drama. So we get a little something different from Ryan Reynolds. I think he digs a little bit deeper. You've got my top three things are: one is you don't go from being me without getting your ass kicked when you're a little kid. He could have very easily trained this kid to be, but he's like, no, you had to go through this hard shit to become this hero of later on. Next one is talking to the mom at the bar. What a heartbreaking scene when he's he just realizes he didn't appreciate but all the stuff his mom did, and he tries to kind of secretly tell her, yeah, you're doing good. And then the parting of the two lovers, we never meet if we alter this future. And then even though they're sending them back to 2018, he's like, oh, there's an echo and it's going to happen. And then we have the comedy. The comedy flips it up. There's the multiverse joke, which was great. I think everyone's going to appreciate it. I think it's going to come up when Rob has to discuss if this movie will stand the test of time, because down the road, people might not get this multiverse joke. The kid is fantastic. He's a mini Ryan Reynolds. He kills it. And then I really like the bully's friend, Chuck. And for some reason, they're always just shut up, Chuck. And he's like, shut your mouth, Chuck, or I'm going to fill it with this guy's feet or whatever like that. It was just great. And then all the action, I think it's fun. You get lightsaber action, you get ray gun action, you get Top Gun fighter plane action. So it literally it just hits everything. It's got something for everybody. So I just can't fault it, really.
I just wish I was there watching at home when that fighter jet scene was going, and I could hear John just yelling "Danger Zone" in the background. But,
Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Soundtrack. Although "Give Me Some Lovin'" is a very. I think about the movie that you have to say is that they took that experience / nuance of those 80s, 90s films and picked very classic songs that are a little more timeless in terms of songs that will not be.
I wonder if it's Reynolds. I feel like he must have a hand in it because he always seems to pick a really good handful of tracks to go with all his movies. So like I said, I can't fault this. So
for Rob and myself, we're laughing because Let My Love Open the Door, Time After Time. Let it be, and then Good Times, Bad Times, Foreplay, Long Time. These are all songs that I think are on Rock Band, so we all know them. Two, they're classic, timeless songs that when you play this film in 15 years to new people, it won't seem out of place. It fits very well. But I have to, before Rob will probably say it too, that CGI de-aging, man, if you can't do it, don't do it. That was just that's the one thing we'll look back when 10 years that's not going to age very well. You're like, ooh, the de-aging tech. You couldn't just hire a younger actress. Maybe you not find someone that you could find someone that looks like her. It doesn't have to be her, because that whole everything when you see a younger version of Catherine Keener just looked and sounded just horrible. But Rob, tell us your thoughts.
So I'm going to give it, approaching it from a dual perspective. I think if I was my son's age, if I'm 13, if I'm anywhere between 8 and 15, and I'm watching this movie, this would hit it'd be amazing for me. the movies I would have watched, between, if I was 8, 9, 10, like The Explorers, Goonies, a little bit of Stand By Me, Indiana Jones, the Star Wars. Like I would have, like, if you go back and you think about all of those movies that we watched, Monster Squad, like some of them, you go back now and you're like, what the heck? I mean, I can see why some of it. What's that?
Sidekicks with Chuck Norris.
Right. Sidekicks with Last Electric Night. Or even like Weird Science. Like you see some of these movies, you're like, oh, some of it holds up and it's more of a nostalgic thing, but you watched it because it was fun and it hit all those buttons for me in my young adolescent brain. And I think that this movie does that very well. And so I can see, and this is not a dig at John, I can see why John really likes it. Not to say that you have an adolescent brain, John, but I think that you approach it though from a younger kid at heart perspective, and I think that's admirable, right? Because I really do see that this would be a movie for younger kids who really, really enjoy it, and they would not find faults in it, right? Like Pixels. You remember that movie Pixels with Adam Sandler, right? Like my kids loved that movie, right? It was just, it was so goofy for them. And for us as adults,
baby.
Yeah, and for us as adults, we're like, what the heck? Some of this is weird. Now, from an adult perspective, watching this, there were certain moments in this movie that I wish they had elevated more than the sci-fi, and that is the scene that John mentioned about him talking to Jennifer Garner. The scenes with him and his dad, as played by Mark Ruffalo. Like, there's some magic and some really touching moments in those scenes, but we don't get enough of that. And I really wish that they had expanded a little bit more on that and cut back on, at times, what felt like unnecessary action scenes. Because part of this movie is the idea that you can go back in time and meet yourself, or you as a kid can see your future self come back, and your parents, you've gone through this horrific family trauma of losing one parent. And then you start to, you can understand as a younger kid looking at yourself in the future, seeing he's telling me all the things that I am feeling now, and I don't realize how harmful my words are to my parents or what's going on. And then you as an adult looking at you saying, I took for granted, or I took for granted this, what was happening, because I didn't have anybody to tell me to take my own head in my own ass. Right. And I think those are important themes that we've seen in movies before, but sometimes it's fleeting. You don't get them a lot. And I think that it's important for like the fabric of people who are watching movies, especially younger kids growing up, that they get this sense of morality at times and just a different viewpoint of understanding, because it can't all be Marvel MCU punchy, shooty stuff. And I think that this movie could have really elevated itself had it focused more on those moments of understanding, of self-awareness, even though 30 years difference. So for as an adult watching this, I wish it had more of that. As the kid at heart watching it, I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah, the lightsaber stuff, the shooties with the the guys coming down in the mech suits and everything else like that.
The armor that did nothing.
Right. It was the same 5 guys because COVID.
And I think to your point, this film is kind of, and why I kind of liked it too, and I'm not giving it a huge thing, because from a reward standpoint, it's nice to watch a quick, zippy film that doesn't have so much exposition. Like, there wasn't like a utopian future where it showed Ryan Reynolds like escaping from the future. It's like kind of like, oh, here are all the cages of people lined up. It's just like, no, just trust me, the future's not great. Like, there wasn't like, here's all the stuff. Every time they said, oh, it's classified, it's this, it's that.
Well, he said it was like Terminator 2 on a good day.
Yeah, like, again, it's one of those things where I kind of wished, and not the first person to say it, that Ryan Reynolds just kept that helmet on a bit longer. Like, but it's Ryan Reynolds, you have to show his face. It's like the same problem with any superhero film. It's like, you don't want to put the actors into a mask where you can't see them, because again, when that first crash lands, you just want to have the experience where you don't know what's going on. If you saw the trailer, but if you weren't like us to watch trailer and you don't know who this character is.
I didn't watch the trailer actually.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have a little bit longer to watch, like Ryan Reynolds, like to hold his helmet and not show his face, just say, oh, who is this person? Just to kind of have that mystery, that Spielbergian mystique that happens. And I think there was like a thing where they went, I guess, Senor Spielbergo. Like they went like light from The Simpsons. We couldn't hire the real Steven Spielberg, so we hired a Mexican counterpart. Like I feel like it's kind of that thing where they're kind of lifting kind of the nuances of like an ET of the last, of the what's the Navigator movie? Is it called the Navigator? Flight of the Navigator. Like these pieces, but not really holding the cap. I think what we praised Batman for was that they just held on sometimes he's just a teeny bit longer. And this one, I don't think they could hold themselves back without making a joke or a ding or like make a noise. It's like you just couldn't sit there and have it silence. They just be like, they have to look and be like Family Guy bit where they have to say or do something else. So yeah, I think Rob, there's something refreshing about watching something I don't have to worry about huge exposition. But I did miss like a classy British person telling me something about star systems and like, well, we actually need this combustible fluid to
like Michael Caine.
like just anytime there's a British person that shows up and talks about either spaceship gobbledygook or like old timey, it kind of just diffuses it in terms of like, okay, cool, it makes sense. Anytime you or I talk about the nacelles of a starship, you'd be like, this is boring. You don't know what you're talking about. But when Scotty does it, you're like, ooh, engineering's fun. Yeah, sorry, Rob.
Well, it's funny because last July, my son was in for surgery, as you guys know, and I said, "Hey, I brought a couple movies to watch before the surgery. We were downtown, and I threw on The Last Starfighter, thinking he's gonna love this. I loved it. Why not?" And he did not love it and was fairly bored by it because of the primitive.
This replaces it.
It does, and so when he and I are watching this, I was like, yes, Stu, exactly to your point. You can take a handful of any 80s movies and just you could sprinkle it, right? Like a sprinkles on a donut. And you're like, oh yes, I recognize this. Oh yes, I recognize that. But I guess to finalize my point is that the scene where at the end, Adam and his dad are playing catch. It does hit, but it doesn't hit hard enough because I felt like it wasn't earned because we didn't have a long lead.
No, it hits hard, man. No, but I think all those emotional scenes are really hard hitting. Yeah.
No, but I felt like it was so quick. We had such a small amount of time with Mark Ruffalo. We had such a small amount of time with Jennifer Garner that I think if you had a little bit more, if you had that lead up, if Ryan Reynolds and Ruffalo had connected longer in the movie, I think then that really would have driven that point home. And so I'm not the editor, I'm not the writer, I wasn't the director, but I probably, as much as Zoe Saldana, I enjoy watching her. I think she's a big fan. I almost kind of think that whole plot with her, including the lakefront house, I think you probably could have removed that entire sequence, that entire scene, and maybe given that time to the relationship building of the father and son aspect to really essentially serve up what probably could have been one hell of a movie on a platter. So how
many days do you think Zoe Saldana was on set? Like 2, 3? She was in like 3-day job.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. A couple of days. I mean, listen, this is a Marvel movie. Like, look at this. If you're looking at the poster if you're watching this on, you can look down at the poster in the bottom right-hand corner, and this is taken right from the Marvel movie poster workshop, right? I mean, you have Deadpool, you have Gamora, you have Elektra, and you have the Incredible Hulk, right? Like,
to that scene, Rob, John, did you notice on the bin when Mark Ruffalo went to pick up the gloves, what was on stickers that were on the bin?
No, I did. I kind of like had to watch it on a TV in my on the kitchen, so I didn't pick up some of the small details.
On the like where the gloves were, one was the Hulk and one was Deadpool. So
nice.
It's one of those things where, and I want to get your thoughts, John. Mark Ruffalo in this film basically is just playing Bruce Banner. Like the whole thing.
Hey man.
I don't think I can now get Mark Ruffalo out of my brain. Like he does just every time I see Mark Ruffalo do a non-serious scene in like basically in another movie, he's just doing Mark Ruffalo. It's now like the Vince Vaughn. Like when he's doing all that jokes and stuff, like punching, he's like, "Oh, my hand hurt." I'm like, this is essentially Bruce Banner, right? Like, is there any difference?
Oh yeah. Especially when he does like he pulls the car in and like kind of like smashes that guy, and he's like, "Whoa!" Like kind of like it's totally what we've seen him do before. But for the amount, like Rob said, the amount of time he has in this movie and things like that, there's no time for him to like create a whole new performance, right? So these characters, I definitely agree that probably seeing some more of Jennifer Gardner would have done wonders for the plot, that part of the plot. But yeah, I thought it was fun. But yeah, he is very Incredible Hulk. If he turned green at the end and got big, like it would have worked.
Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah,
because the Mark Ruffalo overacting award is a high level.
But it's an interesting,
and where he plays the Boston reporter is like, they knew.
yeah, the Globe reporter.
No. It's like the Mark Ruffalo award for overacting. Like he's either like raging against the Catholic Church or the Hulk.
Also raging.
Yeah.
And yet there are so many movies that he's in where he's really subdued. And let's not forget, he was 13 going on 30. He was Jennifer Garner's love interest, maybe about 20 pounds lighter and without the gray hair and the beard. So, it's he has range, but he's kind of, I think he's gotten comfortable into that position. The same can be said for Samuel L. Jackson the last 20 years of his career, right? And Robert Downey Jr. is really Robert Downey Jr., whether he's playing Tony Stark or he's playing Sherlock Holmes. It's still Robert Downey Jr. now. Like a lot of these actors have just, and our friend Andre would say the same about Ryan Reynolds. He would put him at the top of, he's just being Ryan Reynolds. He's being himself in all these movies. Yeah.
I was going to ask my follow-up question to you, John. We talked at the beginning of this being non-franchised films. Do you think they can make a sequel from this? Or is this like a one and done? Do you foresee this universe being more? Or do you see this like, we're never coming back to this? Because Free Guy is getting a sequel. Yeah. We know this for a fact, right? But is this going to get a sequel in your mind?
Yeah, I actually thought about it. I was like, is this like sequel? Like, did they have a trilogy in mind? And I don't think they did, which I think is great. Why this movie works better than a Free Guy. Like if you ask me to watch Free Guy again or this, I'm 100% going to watch this. But you totally could. Someone else could. It's basically similar to Back to the Future, where someone else could have went back in time and it gets created later on, and then Ryan Reynolds and Zoe Salinger and all these people are like the time cops of this type of series or whatever. Is this the first time we've seen bearded Ryan Reynolds since Blade Trinity? I don't remember when he's usually clean shaven, right?
He's been in a few movies. I think Buried, he had a beard. There's been one or two films that he's had a beard, but this is probably I think Blade 3 was the bushiest his beard.
Yeah. The Hannibal King, like when he went full up beard. Yeah, I thought it was a good look for him. So yeah, sidetrack. Sorry,
it's different. Rob, your thoughts?
No.
Sequel.
Yeah, no, I don't. I hope that this is the third highest stream movie in Netflix history.
Mm-hmm.
Red Notice was number one, and for the life of, what's that?
What's number two?
I'm just trying to think because I just read the article earlier today, and I can't remember. No, it's not. It'll come to me or I'll look it up. But this is number 3. It's currently when we're recording this. This movie's been out for a few days now, almost a week, and this is still number 1 in Canada on Netflix. So all that to say is that, maybe the people at Netflix are going to say, hey, listen, we've got a hit here. We know Red Notice is getting 2 and 3. Let's do more add-on project. I really hope that they don't, because I think that
I think, yeah.
I think what they did well. They could have done a bit better. Like you've got my review. I just don't want. I think leave well enough alone. Sometimes restraint is something that is not often practiced in Hollywood the last number of years. So I think they should just leave it.
Stu, do you want a TV show?
Oh God, it's called Quantum.
I think. like to your point, I think the joy of watching this movie is that it doesn't have much stuff going on, so it makes sense. Rob, to your point, the Deadline reported that the Adam Project is his third highest debut for a Netflix original film.
Don't Look Up is number 2.
Red Notice at 148.7 million hours watched. Don't Look Up at 111 million. So this is the third one at 92.4 million hours watched. So,
did you watch Don't Look Up, Stu? Would you watch that over this? Yeah,
I did. Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but I would watch this over Red Notice any day of the week.
Agreed. I was gonna follow up on my next question of the 3 Ryan Reynolds films on Netflix: Adam Project, Six Underground, and Red Notice. John, which will you go back to?
No, 100% this. Underground 6, I still have not gotten through that movie because it just slogs. It's all over the place. It's trying to be more than it can. It's trying to build a world when I don't care about a world yet. And Red Notice, similar thing, but they definitely just phoned a lot of that shit in, and they're just relying on their 3 stars. Maybe the second one will actually be able to level it up. But 100%, I would watch this over any of those.
Rob?
Yeah, the same. And I mean, you know my feelings on Six Underground. If you can't even get you can't get the guy wearing the hat properly on or off on that, then if you're
the least of my problems.
If your continuity editor can't get that shit correct, I'm out. All right. And you know,
but what about with the Don't Look Up? So would you rather watch that? Did you watch it?
I did watch it. I really liked Don't Look Up. But the question out of the 3 Ryan Reynolds movies, I would probably watch Adam Project again. But that being said,
I think, Rob, to your point, even Don't Look Up is a one-time view. Like
I would watch it one more time because I think there are some subtle nuances in McKay's movie that I really like. I really enjoyed that movie, but I think this is easily digestible, right? Like you could literally just lie on a couch with COVID-like symptoms and watch this movie and be like, I'm all right.
I think, John, you have to look at Don't Look Up is like a very satirical, like the world is burning around us and we're looking at it. Most people are tired of that world. They want to escape. And this is the escape.
This was fun. This was, like Rob said, it's a best of the 80s. It's like what we think we remember from the 80s embodied in a 2022 film.
So, but here's something I wanted to bring up to you guys. You know, a lot of people leading up to this, like Reynolds' friends, like, you know, the Hugh Jackmans, the Ellen DeGenereses, people were saying, oh, this is this generation's version of E.T. and yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of hyperbole out there about this movie. And it got me thinking, is this generation's E.T.? And my answer obviously is going to be no. But that got me thinking
is that?
Well, I don't know if there is anything right now because...
So it is.
No. And I'll tell you why. Because I went back, E.T. was released in 1982. And I took a look to see or is it 84? How many movies were released that year? And, you know, it was probably about 182 movies throughout the entire course of the calendar year that year. Nowadays, we have so many streaming movies, like direct to streaming, like we've talked about, right? Not only do you get the ones in the theaters, but you get... You know, Netflix is releasing a new movie every week, right? Mm-hmm. This year. You've got stuff coming out on Amazon Prime almost on a once a month or a bi-weekly basis. And you got your HBO Maxes in the US. We now have so much choice and so much selection and so like a dearth of just a volume of a library of movies. Does this movie have the longevity of those movies that we talked about? And nobody has probably seen The Explorers since they were a kid, or maybe they saw it when they were in their teens, but nobody really goes back and watches that. But you still remember it. Will this movie have that longevity or that memory?
Would you recommend E.T. to someone right now?
Sure, I would. Because I think E.T. it looks dated in terms of its special effects, but I think the story is still a great story and a great movie.
I think at the end of the day, Rob, this is a hard conversation to have, because technology has changed the game. We've talked about this before. Patton Oswalt talked about it in one of his books, where when we were younger, if back in 2001, John was like, hey, let's check out this John Woo film, and be like, oh man, all right, cool. Rob's like, I have 2 on VHS of his films. I'm like, cool. I have 1 on Laserdisc. And John's like, yeah, okay, I got 1 of his on VHS. And we have to meet up, swap, and then figure it out, and then we'd know a John Woo, like we'd be able to watch 3 or 4 John Woo films. we're in a time when a kid who has access to a library of digital platforms can watch and know everything in 1 week and become a full expert on John Woo films and know all the details of it. Just even watching kids who play drums and music now, they can just go on YouTube and watch people, and you are now educated and well versed more than any kid in the history of all music. Like kids that play drums now are as good as Stuart Townsend, and there's videos of like even Dave Grohl watching kids like, I can't even do that, and they've been watching Dave Grohl do it and then improving their skills. Those movies we watched, E.T. 1982, came out in a time where movies stayed in theaters for like 8 months, and you couldn't watch. Some of us didn't have VCRs to record episodes. It was on TV. You saw it once, you never saw it again. You didn't have the backlog of like digital content, the hoarding that we have right now. I don't know if this movie would be like that because, frankly, as you said, Rob, everyone's building out new stuff every week. It may not have that fan base because, frankly, with a new content coming out, it gets buried. It's out with the old, in with the new every single time. It's as we make fun of John. It's the recency bias. Everything new comes in. He's like, this is the new hotness. Forget the old stuff. Even you with your new Spider-Man skin. What's wrong with the old skin on Fortnite? You gotta get a new skin for like. You have an old Spider-Man skin, but now you need the Future Foundation.
It's 4K.
What's going on? And then a week from now, you'd be like, "Yo, man, I got the Spider-Man skin from the Spider-Man movie." So I just keep on getting the new stuff and not worrying about the old stuff. So I don't know. I don't think anyone will know whether this will be there, but there will be someone who watches the movie who will maybe be like open to watch some of the old stuff that it was, inspired by, and that's all you can ask for. Like,
I think then that we, as this Generation X, then I think that we should be reflective of how lucky we are that we grew up with a set of movies that were good. Like, you had a bunch, and then you had a really good lot that we went back because we didn't have as many choices. And so we grew up watching The Breakfast Club. We grew up watching Indiana Jones and all those because we didn't have a huge library in which to pick from. So I guess we should maybe then be reflective and be like, just when we're looking at our shelf of movies and our collections and be like, yeah, I've seen this 100 times because we didn't have anything else to do, right? We just kept watching the same shit. And now kids, when they're going to grow up, like when my son grows up, I don't think he's ever going to think back to like, oh, remember that Ryan Reynolds Adam Project movie? Man, that was really good. Like, I just worried that a lot of these are like Kleenexes.
There's nothing we can do about that. Like, even in an episode of This Is Us, when they go to the cottage and they had no internet, and they're like, "Oh, this tape of Jerry Maguire," and they watch Jerry Maguire on a VHS tape. We all have those
Jerry Maguire.
Stories of going to a friend's cottage or something where they didn't have internet access. And you're like, "What do you got here?" We got some DVDs and stuff, like whatever you had up there. That's what you watched. And same thing was about video games. Like, when you bought a video game when we were a kid, they were $80. You had one game and you played it forever because you couldn't just buy the next game. Now Fortnite, all these games are free. You can top off and just do whatever you want. Like that.
Or they put games on sale for like, pennies on the dollar, and you can hop onto your Steam or PlayStation Network or whatever and get a couple games for a couple dollars, and you just stack games. I know
Netflix has their own games that you can now play.
And now with Xbox has like their own, like, you can sign up for the Xbox package and $8.99 and you get unlimited games. So I just think that we're just living in a different time of just too many options, which is great. I think at the end of the day, as much as we appreciate the old movies, we also have to also know that it was gatekept by a very particular cabal of people, and there weren't messages of films that now, when you see all these films coming into perspectives, like watching Turning Red, people are upset about that one. But how many movies were about puberty and girls, and in a cartoon film like this wouldn't have existed 20 years ago because a man would be like, "Ooh, puberty. We can't talk about that. That's gross. What else can we do?" And it would be another film. So we are in a kind of a renaissance of just new films being made by new people, and unfortunately for us, we're trying to catch up all the time. Like Coda, right? Rob, you and I really like that movie. Would that film be made like a while ago if it wasn't for independent cinema? Probably not. But I think it'll unfortunately not win too many Oscars because it only got nominated for 3. But I think it's a really good film in terms of, I'll probably go back to that and watch it again because it's a story and perspective that I haven't seen or heard of, as opposed to like Adam Project, which There are better future back in time movies. I'd rather, like you said, John, I would just watch Back to the Future. Like I think if I'm going to do it, that's a timeless film that works as well. So, this is where we're at.
Back to the Future is not a fair comparison. No, that's a certified classic. I would definitely 100% watch this over E.T. Any day of the week. What other Ryan Reynolds movie would you watch more than this? Maybe
is that the CGI E.T. where they took away the guns and gave him walkie-talkies?
Oh man,
old school.
Does that exist? That's
yes.
real. Oh my god.
They got rid of the Uzis and gave them all like.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah, I don't remember ever physically seeing it. I thought that was a joke. But would you watch like Deadpool 1 and 2? Rob, would you fire?
Oh,
up
I've seen those. I've seen both of those numerous times. In fact, I even have the Once Upon a Time in Deadpool because it was a bit easier for the young kids to be able to watch. Right.
Yeah. So I tried that. I couldn't do it, but I've only maybe seen those Deadpool movies maybe twice each. And this movie, I watched it 1.5 times already.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be on par. It might be so easily digestible. Like, turn it on in the background of Netflix. It's gonna be like for sure that movie you just fire up in the background.
Yep. All right. Well, we could talk about our old man stuff and talking about the days when old man.
Do you remember VHS and Beta? How big that was?
Oh man!
Oh my god! Guys, remember any disc players? The sound quality. Wow.
I was just looking that up literally last night because I have mine still.
I did too.
There's ways that you can transfer these high fidelity files onto it now. And it's amazing. So
guys, I learned to edit radio shows on reel-to-reel machines. All right.
We're not going to fire that up now.
We are old. John, where can they find you in the internet and the desert of the reel?
All right, folks, if you're looking at us, like Stu said, you can hook up with us virtually or physically. So the Heroes World Online on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, if you're not listening or watching this on YouTube. And then you can listen to this on the audio on the go, Heroes World Podcast on Spotify and iTunes and wherever you get your podcast. And then if you want to hit us up in the real world and see all the cool shit we get in every week that you see posted on our social medias, we're located in Markham, Ontario, 8601 Warden Avenue. Lots of fun stuff. Come check us out.
Rob, what's going on the Sidekick Show this week?
Well, on Monday, the Sidekick Show with myself and Trippy McFarlane over here, we are actually going to be checking out and invite you to join along, everybody. Spider-Man: No Way Home. It just dropped on your video on demand services of choice, whether it's iTunes, Google Play Store, Vimeo, whatever. You can purchase it and watch it. But I'm sure you've already seen it in theater. And the one thing, we did a review, obviously, here on the Heroes World podcast, but we haven't had an opportunity to check it out and see what you thought and those discussions with you. So definitely tune in Monday night, 8:15 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all those streams. Check us out and join us as we talk about Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Spider-Man. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the ride that is, and we will all see you on the flip side. See you all later.